Yo, what is going on, guys? Welcome back to another video. So today, it is a very serious one. As you can tell, I got a haircut. I got the shirt and tie on because we are going to be going through my final 2024-2025 season awards. We're going to be breaking down the 7 big awards. If you watch my other award updates, it's going to be those awards, what I think is going to be the case. And unlike the NHL actual awards, the Gregory should be voted at the end of the regular season. The fact that it's voted on after the second round of the playoffs is absolute bullshit. But yeah, we're going to be breaking this down 1 through 5. Unfortunately, I feel like we're not going to have a ton of drama come awards night, and none of my picks are going to be too controversial. But I think there's a lot of interesting debates in terms of guys being between 2nd to 5th. So let's get into it. Let's break it down. Up first, the Jim Gregory, and this is really going to come down to, I know some people are probably going to comment it. Yes, Chris Patrick wasn't the general manager until July 8th of 2024. I assume that voters are going to count him as the general manager, though, instead of Brian McClellan, who's now the president of the Washington Capitals. So I have him first, and I think whether it's Brian McClellan, whether it's Chris Patrick, they're definitely first, considering they snuck into the playoffs last year, despite being one of the worst wildcard teams of recent memory, had a lot of work to do this summer, did a lot of work, got Logan Thompson for two third-round picks, Chikrin for Nick Jensen in a third-round pick, Pierre-Luc Dubois, although Darcy Kemper might be on a later awards ballot that we're going to go through in terms of the fit, and because they had the Logan Thompson move coming up. That was a very good deal. Mangiapane, they killed the 2024 draft, which, by the way, Cole Hudson, going to be on the podcast in a couple of days. Get ready for that interview. Yeah, I think he's a pretty clear pick in terms of first. Second, Julien Brisebois. People called him a heartless monster this summer for moving off guys like Sergachev and Stamkos, but it has worked. Tampa is yet again a high-end contender, although I think Sergachev was also a good deal for the Utah Hockey Club. They got more depth and picked up a solid asset in a second-round pick, as well as, why am I blanking on his name? Connor Geeky, who's going to be a very good player down the line. Steven Stamkos got $8 million from the Nashville Predators. They said, okay, we're going to just go get Jake Gensel and only pay him $1 million more. At the deadline, Yanni Gourde and Bjorkstrand, very good in terms of adding to their depth, their clear need. Third place, Chris McFarland, another guy that did like a full facelift with his team, got Blackwood. People roasted him for the Rantanen trade. I did not exactly kill him for that. And Natchez has been as good, at least in the regular season, as Mikko Rantanen, as well as stuff like the second line center position he addressed with Brock Nelson, got some depth with Ryan Lindgren and Charlie Coyle. He gave up a lot, don't get me wrong, but in terms of elevating this team back to true contender status, I think rightfully so, he deserves to be on this list. Part of the problem why they had these holes was him in prior years not addressing this, but just this season, which this award is, he definitely addressed it. Brad Treliving had a very good offseason, as well as at the deadline. In the offseason, got Anthony Stolarz 2 years, $2.5 million. Joseph Woll locked him up 3 years, $3.66. That looks like an awesome deal. Oliver Ekman Larson and Chris Tanev, a little bit too much term, but again, looking at it just this year, which this award is, great. Got them for what, a combined $8 million. That's nuts. As well as at the deadline, going all in, getting Scott Laughton to plug up the third line center hole, as well as Brandon Carlo, a good right-handed defenseman. Good job by Brad Treliving. And I got to have Doug Armstrong here as well when looking at the 2 offer sheets that he gave out. Absolute master classes by him. And the Cam Fowler trade. The Cam Fowler trade has been awesome. He's been like a 55 point pace defenseman since he acquired him. I shat on that trade a lot. They didn't give up a lot to get him, but I was like, why would you do that? Why would you give him this guy that's been so bad in Anaheim? Clearly, he just needed a change of scenery and actually be playing important games, and it's really worked out for them as a result. Guys like Bill Zito, solid job. Jim Nill, solid job as well. Big move with Mikko Rantanen, but I'm pretty confident in these 5 being my 5 guys. Next up, the Norris Trophy. I got Cale Makar winning. I feel like he separated himself towards the end because Zach Werenski kind of went cold. 30 goals. First guy since Mike Green to score 30 goals. That is definitely Norris level. 92 points in terms of his expected goals numbers of 55.7%. Expected goals at 5-on-5, which was 11th out of the 137 defensemen in the NHL with at least 1,000 minutes. People are going to say, oh, he's a McKinnon merchant. McKinnon's numbers also fall off a decent amount when he's not playing with Makar at 5-on-5. Such a special talent. And as a result, he's going to be getting his 2nd Norris Trophy. I think we can all agree on that. Zach Werenski, at a point in early March, he was my pick when Columbus was in a playoff spot, when he had like 66 points in 60 games. It was looking like he might hit the 90-point mark. He did eventually slow down. Columbus went really cold down the stretch and then got hot again. But yeah, 82 points, 81 games, playing 26-45 a night. It has been such an impressive season. It's just unfortunate he's going up against such a talent like Cale Makar. Throughout the 2010s, he probably wins the Norris 7 out of 10 years or something like that, just going up against one of the best defensemen of all time. Quinn Hughes, he missed 14 games, so he can't be top 2 ahead of those guys, in my opinion. That's like 16% of the season, roughly, but still a monster year. In terms of a per-game basis, you can make a strong argument that he was the best defenseman in the NHL early on in the season. He was killing it. He was like top 8% and even strength offense and defense. Post-injury, the offense did slow down a little bit. On top of just defensively, he wasn't that good, and the Canucks were just a total shit show, but I still think a very worthy third place for him. Not next up, just Josh Morrissey. Josh Morrissey had a very strong season as well, 62 points, 80 games. Strong defensive numbers with Dylan DeMello. Fully solidified himself as a top 6, top 7 defenseman in the NHL. And then lastly, Rasmus Dahlin did miss some games as well, missed 9 games, but had 68 points in those 73 games, had a 58.3% goals percentage at 5-on-5 on the Buffalo Sabres. And in terms of the expected goals numbers, he had the third best relative expected goals percentage at 5-on-5, only behind Adam Fox and Zach Werenski. Sabres had a 53.3% expected goals percentage with him on the ice, 44.2% off the ice. He absolutely carried this team. The team was still shit, but they might have been a genuine bottom 3, bottom 4 team. They would have probably been neck and neck with like the Nashville Predators if Rasmus Dahlin wasn't so damn good this season. Moving on to the Jack Adams. Spencer Carberry, I feel like he's got to be the pick. Definitely got a lot of help in the offseason as well, but coaching this team from a wild card team, and even after they made those moves, we expected this team to maybe be a wild card team, 90 to 95 point team. They end up being the number 1 team in the Eastern Conference, and they honestly just stopped trying at the end. If not, they would have been a 114, 115 point team. But yeah, amazing job by him. So many guys had career years that they didn't even acquire this offseason. Looking at guys like Protas, McMichael, Pierre-Luc Dubois looked rejuvenated. Obviously, they acquired him this summer. But Sandin, Strome, across the board, great development and just great coaching by Spencer Carberry. I'm going with Jim Montgomery for my second spot for the Jack Adams. When looking at him, they were 35, 17, and 8 under him. Good for a 105-point pace. When looking at under Drew Bannister in the 22 games that he coached for the St. Louis Blues, they were on 71-point pace. Definitely that win streak at the end helped that, but even without that, they were well on their way. They were a playoff point pace team before that run with Jim Montgomery. They just got off to such a slow start under Bannister, and more importantly, you look at their big breakout star. Holloway wasn't playing that good under Bannister. He had 55 points in 55 games under Jim Montgomery when he took over. So absolutely fantastic season by Jim Montgomery, and as a result, he is second place. Scott Arniel. Hard to win the Jack Adams when you inherit a 110-point team, but he ends up winning the President's Trophy, 116 points. Dean Evison, if they made the playoffs, he arguably would have been my pick. I know it's kind of stupid to he missed the playoffs by about 2 points, and then he drops all the way down. But yeah, he did miss the playoffs, and they did just kind of shit their pants at the end in terms of, I think they went on like a 4 to 5 game losing streak where they scored like 2 goals during that. But still, a massive success for the Columbus Blue Jackets when looking at the fact that a lot of their players had career years, amazing season, and they had such shit goaltending from Merzlikins and Tarasov until Greaves really showed up at the end there. Yeah, they had a 65.5% points over under, and as a result, he checks in at 4th. Martin St. Louis did make the playoffs with the Montreal Canadiens. I think rightfully so. He's in that 5th spot. But defensively, they were so bad. And that is more so just defense core itself is not good outside of Hudson and Gooley. But I can't quite have him top 4 or top 3. He did over-exceed expectations, but not quite to the degree of Columbus. They were expected to take a step to be like a low 80-point team. Got them into the playoffs at 91 points. Very good job, but I would still take Evison, even though St. Louis got into the playoffs over Evison. I think that should be pretty consensus across the board. Next up, we got the Selke Trophy. I'm not going to break this down in terms of expected goals against per 60, plus minus, all that stuff. This is my personal opinion. I think Sam Reinhart has been the best overall defensive forward. Barkov's going to win it because he's the center and he has the reputation, but I do think Reinhart was better on top of the fact that Barkov did miss 10 games towards the start of the season. Cirelli, you could make an argument for first. It's just his shorthanded numbers are not that good, not what you expect from Cirelli. Seth Jarvis has been awesome. He checks in at 4th. And I want to show some love to Logan O'Connor at 5th. Doesn't play the toughest or the most minutes of all time. Plays 14, 30 a night. But his actual results, both even strength and on the penalty kill, are so impressive this season. He's been the best just just analytically the best guy. I know that matchups in like overall ice time does matter to a degree who you're lining up against, but I wanted to show some love to him. Guys like Pierre-Luc Dubois, Jordan Staal, you could all throw on this as well. I'm pretty confident in that top three though. Next up, the Vezina Trophy. Connor Hellebuyck, a pretty clear number one in 925 on the season. 39.6 goals saved above expected, 10 more than the next closest, which is Andrei Vasilevskiy. We'll see where Hellebuyck ranks on the Hart list later. Vasilevskiy, a 921 in 63 games and was second in goals saved above expected. In his final 30 games, posted a 930 save percentage. He was awesome, which was best in the NHL. Darcy Kemper, similar story. Got off to a little bit of a slow start, but when he got back from injury after Thanksgiving, he posted a 927, which was best in the NHL. Finished the season with a 921 in 50 games, so not an insane workload, but really just arguably was the best goalie in the NHL for the final 3 to 4 months. He gets the third spot. I've been very high in Philip Gustafsson, a 914, and he played in 58 games because Fleury was not that good this season. He had to inherit a lot of the workload. And when looking at it, although the Minnesota Wild almost fumbled the playoff spot, they would have fumbled it for sure if he didn't step up in a big way. He had a 915 in their final 25 games without Kaprizov, without Ek, and he kind of kept them in that playoff spot, although, again, they didn't have that good of a record in that stretch. The team was going to shit, and he provided steady goaltending for them to grind out 2-1, 3-2 wins and get into the playoffs. And then lastly, Dustin Wolf. We'll talk about him more when we do the Calder, which is up next. We're looking at Dustin Wolf. He's in second. Lane Hudson is in first. When you tie the all-time, he tied, right? Larry Murphy for the all-time rookie assist record. Larry Murphy or Larry Robinson? I think Larry Murphy. But awesome season, 66 points. And again, that was the first 20 games. He was on the second power play and only playing like 20, 21 minutes a night. Once he fully took over as that number one defenseman, he was like a 75-point guy, and his defensive numbers did improve over the season. Yes, his first 15 to 20 games were pretty brutal, but by the end of the season, he was below average, serviceable, not a total liability defensively. Dustin Wolf checks in at number two. When looking at this guy, 53 games. And 53 games despite splitting starts the first like 30 games with Dan Vladar. He was a workhorse towards the end of the season. A 910 in 53 games. The goal saved above expected put him around top 10 roughly in the NHL, but just what he did in terms of keeping this team in the playoff race till the very end. So impressive, which with the third worst offense in the entire NHL. I got Mac and Celebrini. Michkov and Mac and Celebrini are so close. I could see the argument because Celebrini did miss some games early on in the season. You could put Michkov ahead of him. The production is basically the same. I just think Celebrini was a little bit more of a complete two-way player compared to Michkov that is more so pure offensive talent. Both of these guys are going to be superstars. In 5 years, we're not going to talk about if I place them third or fourth in the Calder ballot. They're both awesome. I think, what is their exact stats? He had 26 goals and 63 points on the season. And when looking at Celebrini, he had 25 goals, 38 assists, 63 points in 70 games. Yeah. It's neck and neck. And then I threw Cutter Gauthier last. You could argue Will Smith. I think Will Smith was definitely the fifth best rookie down the stretch of the season. He had like 30 points in his final 34 games, but he was kind of just straight up horrible his first like 30 to 40 games. Meanwhile, Cutter Gauthier was a lot more just solid across. And despite dealing with a guy like Greg Cronin that was stuffing him in the bottom six for absolutely no reason, he finished off with 20 goals and 44 points. In his final 27 games, once he was finally put with Leo Carlsson within that top six, he had 11 goals, 11 assists, 22 points in 27 games. My legendary Calder pick before the season. I think if he was with Leo Carlsson the full time, he would not be as good as Hudson or Wolf or Celebrini or Smith or Mitch. But I think if full season he played with Carlson and they were so goddamn good, we would have been looking at a 25, 30, 65, or 55 kind of season from Cutter Gauthier. And then lastly, I do indeed have Connor Hellebuyck winning the Hart Trophy. When looking at him, again, at 925, almost 40 goals saved above expected. When you look at this season, era adjusted compared to Carey Price. I know Carey Price had a worse defense score, but the advanced stats as well as the era adjusted save percentage, a lot more goals get scored in the 2025 season versus 2015 season. I think it's definitely on par. I'm not going to say it's definitively better than the Carey Price season, but I think it fully is. He has a better team, but also they're the President's Trophy winner. That's like the argument will be made nonstop that Leon Draisaitl, without him, they would have missed the playoffs. They probably would have because they made the playoffs by like 5 points over the Calgary Flames. That's just a shit argument, in my opinion, because, again, Edmonton was not barely a playoff team. They still had like 100, 101 points, but it's not like there was some wagon. Connor Hellebuyck, there was other guys that had great seasons on his team, but he was the best player by a country mile. They would not be where they are in the standings without Connor Hellebuyck. Draisaitl, great. Missed 11 games, though. I think he was leaps and bounds the best forward this season, and that's why I still have him second. Nikita Kucherov also did miss 4 games. Not like it's 11 games compared to Kucherov. But yeah, Draisaitl, very solid defensively, as well as, again, driving an Edmonton team that was really disappointing offensively. McDavid wasn't at his best, missed some games. RNH, Hyman, everybody across the board had a down year, but Draisaitl was absolutely fantastic, and he slots in at number 2. Kucherov's closer to number 2 to Draisaitl than McKinnon, in my opinion, because I think Kucherov was just so impressive this season, playing like 22 minutes a night, 121 points in 78 games, another dominant season, leading, I believe they were number 1 in goals for this season. Nathan McKinnon, a good season, safe number 4 in my opinion, 116 points, second in the NHL, led his team by like 24, and led his team in terms of like forwards by, I don't know the exact number. Let me pull that up real quick. The second closest forward in scoring to him was Mikko Rantanen at 64. I know it's a little wonky because he had Mikko Rantanen for half a season that had Martin Necas, but yeah, led the team in terms of forwards by 52 points. It was just an awesome season by Nathan McKinnon, but should not sniff the Hart Trophy. There was a vote by like anonymous NHL writers on the NHL's Instagram page, and they had McKinnon first. So I'm getting scared that they might give this to McKinnon just because he is the big name player and second in the NHL in terms of points. Canadian, plays in a decently sized market compared to like a Kucherov or Hellebuck. So I'm getting scared. I'm getting scared on that regard. And then lastly, Zach Werenski, again, 82 points in 81 games, led the Jackets in scoring by 8, and the third closest was like almost 30 points away from him. An amazing season and playing 27 minutes a night almost. So impressive. The one guy that I think people might clamor for, but I'm not going to have him, is David Pastrnak. When looking at his season, insane. Led the team. He had 106 points. The next closest was Geeky, who had 57, and then the third closest was at 47, or the second closest to Pastrnak, third on the team, was 47. The only problem with David Pastrnak is he wasn't that good in the first half of the season when the Boston Bruins were actually in the playoff race. They were 14-4 in their first 38 games, and Pasta only had 37 points. Meanwhile, in their final 44 games, they were 13-25-6, and he had 69 points in 44 games. So even when he was going off, it didn't really directly lead to wins. I guess you could argue that they'd be 8-25, 8-20, 8-30, and like 6 if they didn't have him for those stretches. But again, his dominant run didn't really result in team success, so I don't have him there. And also, I mean, he missed the playoffs by 15 points. So yeah, that's my full award. So yeah, we're gonna go through it one more time. Here's the Gregory ballot. Here's the Norris. Don't think that this is too much of a controversial. I don't think I'm dying on any hill here. The Adams, the Vezina, the Selke, the Calder, in the Hart. Let me know in the comments, what do you think? Who would you move up? Who would you move down? Or I guess in this case, it would be like move across because they're horizontal. But yeah, let me know in the comments. Also, we are going to be doing the Bonnies, the first annual Bonnies Award, the M-Bon Awards, that is going to be voting on you guys. It's going to be alternative NHL awards like the Thompson, the most improved player in the NHL, the Skogo, the biggest fall off in terms of like a veteran guy that just fell off out of nowhere, the best defenseman. You could guess who maybe that's named after or going to be named after if they win the first one. The Hossa, the best UFA signing this season, and the Barkov, kind of jokingly, for the most underrated player in the NHL. I'll drop that probably later today. Check it out on my Instagram. I'll mention it in the next YouTube video as well. Yeah, you guys are going to vote on that, and we'll have that award. I'll probably be rocking this yet again. I'll be seeing you in the next one. Peace.